Why Men Pull a WAY. Carl Jung's Hidden Psychology. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything seemed perfect? The conversations flowed effortlessly. He texted you first. He wanted to spend time with you. He made you feel special. You began to imagine a future together. Then, without warning, something changed. The messages became shorter. The calls became less frequent. He seemed distant, distracted, almost like a different person. And suddenly, you were left asking yourself the question that has haunted countless women. Why did he pull away? Was it something you said? Did you show too much affection? Did he lose interest? Or was he simply pretending from the very beginning? These questions can keep someone awake at night. They create self-doubt, anxiety, and the painful habit of blaming yourself for another person's behavior. But what if the answer is deeper than that? What if his distance has less to do with you than you imagine? Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is driven by forces hidden beneath conscious awareness. He argued that people often act without fully understanding why they act the way they do. In other words, a man may not even understand why he is pulling away. That doesn't mean every man who becomes distant should be excused. Nor does it mean every relationship can or should be saved. But it does mean that if we want to understand love, we must first understand human psychology, because relationships are not only built on attraction, they are built on fears, dreams, childhood experiences, unresolved emotional wounds, and the silent conversations taking place inside the mind. Before we go any further, may I ask you a small favor? If you enjoy thoughtful conversations about love, relationships, and psychology, please subscribe to the Love and Relationship Lab. Every subscription helps this channel grow, allowing me to spend more time researching, writing, and creating videos that help people build healthier and happier relationships. Thank you. Your support truly means a great deal. Now, let's continue. One of the greatest misunderstandings in relationships is believing that when someone pulls away, it automatically means they have stopped caring. Sometimes that is true, but not always. Carl Jung observed that every person carries both a public self and a hidden inner world. The public self is the version we show everyone else. The hidden self contains our fears, insecurities, unresolved conflicts, and emotional struggles. In the early stages of a relationship, people naturally show their best side. They are confident, attentive, playful, hopeful. But as emotional intimacy begins to grow, something unexpected can happen. Real intimacy doesn't only bring excitement, it also exposes vulnerability. For many men, vulnerability can feel unfamiliar. From childhood, many boys are taught to be strong, to solve problems, to remain in control, to hide fear, to avoid appearing weak. As they become adults, these lessons often remain deeply rooted. So when a relationship begins to require emotional openness, some men experience an internal conflict. Part of them wants love. Another part fears what love requires, not because they don't care, but because genuine intimacy asks them to. lower the emotional walls they have. Spent years building. Jung believed that whenever we avoid something emotionally important, it doesn't disappear. Instead, it moves into the unconscious, where it quietly influences our decisions. This means a man may sincerely want a loving relationship, yet unconsciously fear dependence. He may deeply admire a woman, yet fear disappointing her. He may desire commitment, yet worry that he will lose his independence or sense of identity. These hidden conflicts often create behavior that appears confusing. One day he moves closer. The next day he withdraws. One week he speaks about the future. The following week he becomes emotionally unavailable. To the person on the receiving end, this feels inconsistent. But inside his mind, two competing desires may be fighting each other. The desire for connection and the fear of what connection demands. This doesn't mean every man who pulls away is experiencing inner conflict. Some people simply lose interest. Some are emotionally unavailable. Some are not ready for commitment. And some never intended to build a serious relationship in the first place. The challenge is learning to recognize the difference. And that is exactly what we will explore next. Because understanding why men pull away is only the beginning. The more important question is this: how do you know whether he needs space, or whether it's time for you to walk away? Part 2. Now let's answer an important question. If a man pulls away, does it automatically mean he has stopped loving you? The answer is no. But it also doesn't automatically mean he will come back. This is where many people make a costly mistake. They assume that every period of distance has the same meaning. Carl Jung would likely remind us that human behavior is rarely that simple. The same action can have very different causes. One man withdraws because he needs time to process his emotions. Another withdraws because he fears commitment. Another because he is overwhelmed by work or family responsibilities. And another because his feelings have genuinely changed. From the outside, all four men look exactly the same. They become distant, but internally, they are living completely different stories. This is why rushing to conclusions often creates unnecessary pain. Instead of asking, "Why isn't he texting me?" a better question might be, what is his overall pattern of behavior? Psychologists often say that patterns tell us far more than isolated moments. Anyone can have a difficult week. Anyone can become stressed. Anyone can need time alone. But a pattern reveals character. Does he communicate honestly when something is wrong? Does he disappear without explanation? Does he consistently return only when it suits him? Does he make an effort to rebuild the connection? These questions reveal much more than counting how many hours have passed since his last message. Carl Jung believed that maturity comes from becoming conscious of our own behavior. Unfortunately, not everyone reaches that level of self-awareness. Some people spend their entire lives reacting instead of reflecting. When life becomes emotionally demanding, they don't face the problem. They avoid it. Avoidance may bring temporary relief, but it never creates lasting peace. Think about someone standing in front of a mirror with a crack across the glass. Instead of repairing the mirror, They simply turn away from it. The crack still exists. They just no longer have to look at it. Relationships often work the same way. Some men pull away because they have never learned how to handle emotional conflict. Rather than expressing fear, disappointment, or uncertainty, they choose silence. To them, silence feels safer than vulnerability. But silence also leaves the other person guessing. And guessing often creates anxiety. This is why chasing answers rarely brings peace. When we desperately seek reassurance from someone who is emotionally unavailable, we often lose sight of ourselves. Our focus shifts completely onto them. Every notification becomes significant. Every delayed reply feels personal. Every conversation is analyzed over and over again. Without realizing it, the relationship begins to revolve around fear instead of love. Jung believed that when we become emotionally consumed by another person, we often project our own needs onto them. We expect them to remove our fears, to restore our confidence, to give us certainty. But no relationship can permanently provide what only inner security can create. Healthy love does not require you to abandon yourself while waiting for someone else's decision. It allows two emotionally mature people to choose each other freely. This leads to another important truth. A man who genuinely values the relationship may occasionally need space, but he will usually make an effort to maintain trust. He doesn't leave you living in endless confusion. He communicates, even imperfectly, even briefly, because respect doesn't disappear when someone needs time. On the other hand, if distance becomes a pattern of manipulation, if affection appears only when you begin walking away, if you're constantly wondering where you stand, then the issue may no longer be space. It may be emotional inconsistency. And emotional inconsistency can become exhausting. Not because love is difficult, but because uncertainty slowly drains hope. Carl Jung believed that every relationship invites us to learn something about ourselves. Sometimes that lesson is patience. Sometimes it is forgiveness. And sometimes the lesson is learning that love should never require you to lose your dignity. In the next part, we'll explore one of the biggest mistakes people make when someone pulls away. Ironically, the harder they try to hold on, the faster the relationship slips away. And understanding why could completely change the way you approach love. Part 3. The biggest mistake most people make. By now, we've explored some of the hidden reasons why a man may become distant. But there is another side to this conversation that is just as important. What happens after he pulls away? Because your response can either strengthen the relationship or quietly destroy it. When someone you care about becomes emotionally distant, your first instinct is often to close the gap. You text more. You call more. You ask questions. You search for reassurance. You try to fix what feels broken. These reactions are completely human. When we fear losing someone, we naturally want to restore the connection. But Carl Jung believed that fear has a way of narrowing our perspective. Instead of seeing reality clearly, we begin acting from anxiety rather than wisdom, and anxiety rarely leads to good decisions. One of the most important lessons in any relationship is learning the difference between pursuing love and chasing certainty. Healthy love grows through mutual effort. Chasing certainty often comes from fear. When fear takes control, people begin sacrificing their own peace. They overlook disrespect. They ignore broken promises. They excuse repeated disappointments. Not because these things are acceptable, but because they become afraid that speaking up will push the other person away. Ironically, the more you abandon your own needs to keep someone close, the more you lose the very confidence that attracted them in the first place. Jung believed that every person must develop a strong sense of self. He called this process becoming whole. A whole person does not expect another human being to carry the entire weight of their happiness. Instead, they enter a relationship as someone who already knows their values, their boundaries, and their worth. That changes everything. Because when you know your worth, you stop trying to convince someone to see it. You stop negotiating for basic respect. You stop measuring your value by someone else's attention. Instead of asking, "How do I make him stay?" you begin asking, "Is this relationship bringing out the best in both of us?" That is a much healthier question. There is another truth that many people discover too late. You cannot build emotional intimacy with someone who refuses emotional responsibility. Love requires two people, not one person carrying the relationship while the other simply reacts whenever it becomes convenient. A healthy relationship is not perfect. There will be disagreements, misunderstandings, moments when one partner needs more support than the other. But underneath all of that should be one essential quality: mutual willingness. A willingness to communicate, a willingness to understand, a willingness to repair what has been damaged. Without that willingness, relationships slowly become one-sided, and one-sided love eventually becomes emotional exhaustion. Carl Jung once observed that what we resist persists. Many people resist the possibility that a relationship may no longer be healthy. They hold on to memories instead of reality. They fall in love with who someone used to be instead of accepting who they are today. But growth sometimes requires accepting painful truths. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some relationships enter our lives to teach us courage. Others teach us patience. And some teach us the importance of walking away when love no longer allows us to grow. That doesn't mean giving up too quickly. It means recognizing the difference between temporary distance and permanent emotional absence. There is wisdom in giving someone space, but there is also wisdom in knowing when you've given enough. The healthiest relationships are not built on chasing. They are built on two people who continue choosing each other, even after the excitement of the beginning has faded. Part 4. The answer that changes everything. As we come to the end of this discussion, let's return to the question that brought us here. Why do men pull away? After everything we've explored, the answer becomes much clearer. There isn't just one reason. Some men pull away because they fear emotional vulnerability. Some because they are overwhelmed by life's pressures. Some because they have never learned how to communicate difficult emotions. And yes, some pull away because they have realized the relationship is not right for them. The challenge is not trying to guess which one applies. The challenge is learning to observe actions instead of becoming trapped in assumptions. Carl Jung believed that maturity begins when we stop trying to control what is outside ourselves and begin understanding what is within. That is perhaps the greatest lesson any relationship can teach us. You cannot control another person's choices. You cannot make someone ready for commitment. You cannot love someone into becoming emotionally available. But you can choose how you respond. You can decide what you will accept. You can decide whether your relationship is built on trust or uncertainty, respect or excuses, growth or emotional exhaustion. One of the healthiest questions you can ever ask yourself is not, "How do I make him come back?" Instead, ask, "If he never changes, would this relationship still be the life I want?" That single question removes fantasy and replaces it with reality. Because healthy love is not built on potential. It is built on consistent character. Real love makes room for honesty. Real love creates emotional safety. Real love allows both people to grow without fear of losing themselves. Carl Jung believed that one of life's greatest goals is becoming the most authentic version of yourself. Ironically, when you stop chasing approval and start living authentically, your relationships begin to change. Not because you've learned clever dating techniques, but because you no longer settle for relationships that require you to betray your own values. You become calmer, more confident, more patient. You stop seeing being alone as failure. Instead, you recognize that peace is far better than constantly questioning where you stand with someone. And that changes the kind of people you allow into your life. The right relationship should not leave you in a constant state of confusion. It won't be perfect. There will still be disagreements and difficult seasons. But beneath those challenges, there should be trust, mutual effort, and a shared commitment to work through life's ups and downs together. So, if a man pulls away, don't immediately panic. Observe, listen, communicate honestly. Respect both his actions and your own boundaries. And remember this: someone who truly values you won't expect you to live indefinitely in uncertainty. They will make their intentions known through consistent actions over time. Perhaps that is the greatest insight Carl Jung leaves us with. The quality of your relationships is deeply connected to the quality of your relationship with yourself. The more you know yourself, the less likely you are to lose yourself in someone else. Thank you for watching the Love and Relationship Lab. If this video helped you see relationships from a new perspective, please do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue growing this community together. Every subscription helps us reach more people who are searching for healthier, wiser relationships. If you know someone who is wondering why a man has suddenly become distant, share this video with them. It might give them the clarity they need, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever experienced someone pulling away? What did it teach you about yourself and about love? Your experiences may encourage someone else who is walking through the same journey. Until next time, Remember this: the strongest relationships are not built by chasing someone else's attention. They are built by two people who choose each other again and again with honesty, respect, and emotional maturity.